tools. And this is just a few to see in these logos. So it's hard to imagine how things will be by 2020. And we are not far away from 2020, by the way, because even in Dr. Muhammad Ali's presentation, he mentioned that by 2017, every 12 days, the information will be changing. So how can we really face this increasing change and accelerating day by day? Between pros and cons of social media, of course, here we can see any tool, even when internet was popular to people or available to people worldwide, it has pros and cons. And then people gradually, they started to realize that there is a good benefit, that we can use the internet for better uses. Here you can see even the pros are much bigger than the cons. And this actually will lead us to a decision. Why to keep it away from education then? Maybe it's good to rethink and make a decision to utilize it in a better way in our education systems. I tried here to make a list of the network website of social media, and it's 100 plus social media websites and applications and tools available. And now most of them actually, they move towards having them on mobile technology. So it's no longer limited by the PC or the laptop. Anywhere you go, if there is Wi-Fi, you connect, and immediately there you go. You can connect with your friends, with your teachers, with your anybody you like. Also, there are some social media networks that were shut down because there were no users for it. And also, it's here. By the way, this presentation will be available to you, so you can take it later on. And we came up to make focus on the list of the most social media networks that has more than 100 million active users. And it was condensed, the 100 plus list, to 16 social media networks. Of course, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, G+ is emerging as well, and some other ones that we use, Pinterest, WordPress, they are taking also the lead in this regard. A number of questions were raised from educators that collectively I took from some of you, and thank you for these questions. So I'm going to answer some of them here. What makes these tools different? The simultaneous interaction, it gives it a spirit, it gives it a soul, because it's always, even when we are together face to face, we like people, to interact and immediately answer and be spontaneous. And this also gives it this chance, which is an asset for it. Usually what happens, as an example, I'm not here underestimating, but if you go to any collaboration center that with the time differences, you upload your message, and you have to wait maybe for the next day or for the next couple of days until somebody responds to you. This would be a kind of frustration. But if you find somebody who immediately responds to you, it's a lively chat, as if you are face-to-face sitting with these people. Between misuse and overuse of the social media, I think we decide what we want how we want to use it. Can we protect ourselves and students from cyberbullying? Yes, we can. There are tools to block and report any abuse from anyone who comes to our accounts. What strategies can teachers use to make social media successful for them and their students? Of course, willingness to communicate, connect, and collaborate globally. This is important. Which tools should be used to make learning activities effective? Of course, this depends on the goals and purposes you decide, in addition to how you think of your standards and objectives in your curriculum. How can teachers set goals, demands, priorities, time constraints? Most of the popular social media tools have ways to control traffic, permissions, calendars, and management tools, which is, most of them are really user-friendly, so it's not complicated. Now, I want to collect everything to go back to our main objective, which is iEARN, our global family of iEARN. We have the Collaboration Center for iEARN, and that was a pioneer in 1988. being number one in the world that has to do with education, with this large community who interact between every now and then on different online collaborative projects. Now the question is, what will happen if this collaboration center remains the same for the coming 25 years, since we are celebrating this year the 25 years anniversary for iEARN? And will youth still use it? Let's see what's there in the research. I think there is. Okay. There is multiple literacies for 21st century, of course, in addition to the main ones, which is reading, writing, numeracy, etc. So we will have, actually, we're already now experiencing globalization, multicultural literacy, eco-literacy, cyber literacy, physical fitness and health literacies, the arts and creativity, social emotional literacies, media literacy, and financial literacy. So all these are essential in order to prepare the youth and ourselves as well for the 21st century. And one important thing is that now I think every day the teachers are left behind, because youth are the ones who are accelerating from their teachers in the use of social media, in the use of mobile technology. So maybe we need to look after teachers as well now in a way to make them ready to be able to accommodate these skills, to transfer them to the future generations. So talking about the 21st century workforce readiness, because everything is becoming integrated and interrelated, youth abilities for expansive thinking and public problem solving will dramatically increase. Youth are learning to focus on what matters most, with the emphasis on leveraging social media as one's personal learning network. Purposeful collaborative actions will leverage shared knowledge. If we all share what we know, we'll all have access to all our knowledge. Peer-evaluated, crowd-accelerated innovation will be recognized as a new dynamic for our global hologram of shared imagination. Digital reputations, and this is, I would like to put maybe 10 lines underlying this word, digital reputation, will be judged by the level of leverage meaningful activities one leads and is directly involved in advocacy for just-in-time. So people can become a reference because of their best practices, good practices on the internet and in social media, which is really crucial and important. Every day we can see it. Inquiry-based learning dynamics will evolve, along with the recognition that the best innovations can be globally disseminated to billions in a day's time. And this is what is the essence of iEARN, is to have meaningful projects that would really make a change in people's life positively. I like to share with you this photo, and here this little boy, he says, "Hi, I'm Shahem from Jordan, 1 year old. Are you ready to educate me in the new millennia?" He's already now using the mobile technology. So are we really ready to educate this boy? And it applies on all the kids around the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Katam. Can everybody hear all right? Volume's okay? Okay, good. If you want to tweet something that you found interesting about Katam's presentation, you can also do that one. Next up, we're going to talk to, or listen to, Rebecca, and she'll spend the next 10 minutes talking about social media and education, the what, why, how, and some examples.
Hello. Good morning, and I'd like to add my welcome to the one you've already received. It's really a joy and an honor to be here today. I started talking about social media and education with Katam several months ago when I found that we shared a lot of the same passions. and we had come to some of the same realizations of the importance of social media for education. And this has two aspects. It's important for social media is important for educators in terms of their professional development, and in the classroom in terms of building skills for your students. So what are we talking about? Let's step back a moment, because we will bring up a lot of issues that you've heard of before. We'll bring up 21st century skills. We'll bring up workforce readiness. We'll bring up lots of terms like ICT and Twitter and Facebook and Skype. And this is because we're talking about social media tools. It's social. It's interpersonal. It involves interaction between people. And we use the term media because it includes a wide range of tools, processes, software, websites, forums, and mechanisms that allow us to connect. It's ways for people to get together, and it's productive for professionals and in the classroom. Why should we use them? We will share our personal stories about why it's important, why we think it's personally important for us, and we'll share references to research and to general topics about workforce readiness in the 21st century. But for my personal story about what has convinced me that social media tools are absolutely crucial to education in the 21st century is because they instantly make any activity global, creative, collaborative, technologically innovative, and character building, and many more aspects, but these are kind of the most important ones to me, the ones that I've seen change my life and change my students' lives. So let's talk a little bit about the 21st century student. Here I have a picture on the background. These are girls at a public K-8 school, and they're climbing over the wall and trying to leave school. And perhaps they're just playing, perhaps it's silly, but this gives a sense that if something doesn't change in the school campus and in the classroom, kids can't wait to get out of it. They want to interact with people. They want to do things that matter, and they want to learn things that are meaningful. And if we can't provide that, they'll escape any way they can, even if it means climbing over the wall. But this is how your students interact with the world. They interact through social media now. I have young brothers, and my youngest brothers, who are about 15 and 17 now, they have grown up in a world where they have always known that people are connected by unseen forces, Wi-Fi, mobile networks. They just know people are connected by unseen forces all around the world. They know that. They've always known that. And that's a very different way to grow up than the way I grew up, where, before my dad even had a pager, I could only reach him if he was at his landline computer or his landline phone. And if he wasn't there, then I couldn't reach him. He was somewhere, but I couldn't reach him. But my brothers have always known that you could connect to people, you could reach people, that they were there in the ether, in the Wi-Fi, in the mobile networks. And that's a very different way to grow up. And I think that will require transforming a lot of the ways that we think about education and the activities that we give our students. It's also the way the world connects to them. I've got brothers that play online games, and you can look and see where the people who are playing with you are coming from. And many times they're from Taiwan, they're from the Philippines, they're from Pakistan. And so my brothers just know that they're there. They know that they can connect to people and that people can connect to them. And one of the things that I've really reached, the conclusion I've reached, is that social media is not an addition to. It's not one more thing that you have to cover. It's not the same as including a computer class or including a computer section in your class. It's not addition. It's an exponential change. You are taking your lesson and you are raising it to include the character development that goes on, the technological fluency that your students engage with, the creative production that they have to do, and the collaboration and global competence that the students are required to practice through using social media. Now, we will face issues. There are many issues to deal with when you're talking about social media in the classroom. And we're not saying that there aren't, but these are common issues. They're shared in many classrooms around the world, and there are many, many people trying to deal with them and come up with solutions and changing the structures of the schools to cope with this new situation. Yes, social media can be distracting. Many schools just ban technologies like mobile phones or websites like Facebook in the school. You do have to be careful of cyber safety and be very aware that especially because your students are minors, if they have an internet presence, they're very vulnerable. They need to protect their private information and their reputation. That there are requirements of curriculum and testing that we need to work towards. That oftentimes teachers are behind the students trying to figure out how to use social media. And you do need to protect students from cyberbullying and harassment that can happen through social media. These are issues, but there are many, many, many sources online and online forums for working with other teachers to try to figure out and resolve these issues for your classroom and for your school. And when we're talking about 21st century skills and social skills for the 21st century, these skills that we're referring to are built through practice, not just lessons. You can't sit down and listen to a lesson about global competence and then walk away and know how to do it. Just sitting in a lesson is not the same thing as practicing, and you have to practice. If you think about sports or art, even if you're naturally talented towards those fields, if you don't practice, you won't be very good. And it's the same with any skill. If you don't practice, then you won't be building your capacities. And school can be a way to structure opportunities to practice those skills. Now, if you use social media, then you provide that space, and they practice all those critical thinking skills and collaboration and teamwork and technological fluency and multilingualism and all those wonderful 21st century skills that you would like to see achieved by your students. And they practice with those technologies, the skills, and the content knowledge. We're not saying that it needs to be something completely separate from your content knowledge that you need to teach in your curriculum. And it also encourages students to use these technologies for specific purposes, which makes it more meaningful. It's not just learning about ICT in general, but trying to use Facebook in order to do something meaningful and interpersonal. It makes it matter. And this will require that we change our assessments. So we have, instead of the standardized testing or multiple choice or short answer, what we could do is structure practice spaces around performance or presentation, projects, or portfolios. And as iEARN teachers, we know this. We know that having some sort of production or performance or final product is important for making the activity meaningful, personally meaningful for the students, and to have a really meaningful connection with other people. There are so many ideas for implementing social media technology. I had slides and slides that were just lists of websites, and some of my colleagues convinced me to take those out. But I have those lists. I have how-to guides for how to incorporate social media in your classroom, guides for how to incorporate social media as an education professional, how to incorporate social media in your campus. I have resources in English and in Arabic. So feel free to email me and ask me for those resources, and I would be glad to share those with you. It's just some examples of how to use social media even when you don't have a classroom with iPads for every student, or laptops for every student, or steady Wi-Fi with a large bandwidth in order to stream a lot of video. You can do things like mimic Twitter with Post-it notes and have a topic, have students engaged, have them answer questions or interact with each other, and just run around and put Post-it notes on each other's desks, answering questions or continuing a conversation. You can have students create a website using paper and pencil and have different sheets of paper be different pages on the website, and start populating a website and designing a website just on paper and pencil, then transition to the computer lab or the classroom computer and type it up or translate that into the digital technology there. But there are ways to keep the same goals and activities even in low-resource schools. And if you'd like more information about that, please email me, because there are many people who would like to help you. And then I've listed a few of the social network sites specifically for educators. There are many, and they're very, very active, and they're full of people who are interested in these ideas and working on these topics. And the important thing about social media and about anything in the 21st century is that it changes fast. And so it's good to stay connected with other teachers on a social network like this, because they can help you. They can help you stay up to date with changing technologies as Facebook rolls out new privacy settings, or as MySpace gets reinvented. They can help you try to keep up with these changes. Now, I have a couple personal examples of ways that I've incorporated social media into my classroom. Right now, I teach university and some high schoolers taking university courses. I've many years ago was a French teacher in kindergarten and K-8 classrooms, so I'm interested in every level. I call it P20, preschool through higher ed. And for example, one activity that I had was a mock Arab Spring with my students that were studying anthropology of the Middle East, and this was after we'd done lectures and video. And I had each student represent a kind of a group within society in a particular country, and we role played in the classroom. I had circle tables, and the students were circled around, and they were taking turns role-playing out how the group that they represented would react or act, trying to reconcile the values they held and the actions that they wanted for their country. And they were doing this role-playing, but also live tweeting it, and so that everyone could read what other people were doing. And then the final presentation, if they reached some compromise in their country, they had to reach a top 3 rank ordered, so number 1, then number 2, then number 3, values that they shared and actions that followed from those values. And so that was the goal of the role-playing activity. And if they reached that, or when they reached that, they then needed to put together a presentation to share with the class about the activity that they had. And we uploaded those to YouTube for the class YouTube channel, and they were able to see each other's presentations and share them with their friends. Again, this incorporation of social media made it creative, it made it collaborative, it made it global, it made it productive, it made it meaningful, and it engaged the technology fluency that the students needed. And so they watched each other's videos, they left comments, it was very interactive, and it accomplished all of the skill building and also the content knowledge of what happened during these countries in the history of the Arab Spring as well. So it's not just doing a lecture on content and then doing a social media activity, but combining them. I also had my students write Wikipedia articles, and this was instead of our term writing assignment, because I was tired and my students were tired of the students writing papers that were read by me only and once only, and then nothing ever happened with them ever again. And at this day and age, they just weren't excited by that type of project. And so I shifted it, and I took some courses and studied some resources provided by Wikipedia U that's trying to encourage more universities to to write Wikipedia articles and article sections. So it took 5 months. We had several different steps. I facilitated this project all the way through. They had a classroom blog where they had to post at the different levels. So they had to post their brainstormed topic ideas. They had to post their first 5 sources that they found. They had to post drafts. And they also shared links to the wiki spaces, the sandbox, which is where you can draft up articles. And they would share those links so that the different students could read each other's articles as they were being developed and share suggestions or learn from each other. And then when they were finally completed and uploaded to Wikipedia, and I can have a list of all the Wikipedia articles that were written by my students, if you'd like that list, then those links were on the school e-newsletter so that everyone in the school could go and feel connected and shared. One student came to me, said that her mother had made her wiki space her homepage and was following her work in real time. And she said it was the most meaningful thing she'd ever done in university thus far. And you can do something like that at different levels where you're writing certain sections of a larger Wikipedia article, or something similar, having a classroom wiki that maybe is just a private wiki, or other ideas that I could share with you if you are interested in having a writing assignment be interactive like this. Again, I encourage you to post questions and comments on Twitter with the hashtag iEARNSM. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Next up, we'll have Mohammed, and Mohammed is going to talk to us about facilitation. And we're getting a few questions on Twitter, but if you don't have access to Twitter, maybe you can collaborate with your neighbor and submit some more questions. So at the end, we can have a nice Q&A. Over to Mohammed. And now we'll hear from the other side of the classroom, the student side of the classroom, to get some insight on redefining social media, and introduction, history, and technology. Over to Andrew.
Good morning. So when I talk about social media, what do you think of it? I think about Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, the sites that we all use, and the social media. When we do a quick Google search to define social media, you see all these different definitions, these different sources. But the words that are highlighted come from something like
Nice. Thank you, Andrew. That was really enlightening. I've asked you a question on Twitter as well. I don't want to spoil it, but I do want to know something about that more. And over to Michael, who is the third-year substitute teacher from Australia and founder of the Global Classroom Project.
All right. Just a quick show of hands. Hands up if you are using Twitter for professional learning. If you're a teacher or a student. Well, good, we've got a few hands going up. Can I just have a show of hands? Hands up if you've actually joined Twitter or started learning how to use it at this conference. So I know we've actually made quite a few inroads. It's been really good. Okay, I've travelled halfway around the world to be here. 2.5 years ago when I joined Twitter, I would never have imagined that I'd find myself sitting here. This was me just a little over 4 years ago. Starting out in teaching is never easy, particularly when you leave university or college and you realise that you don't actually know how to teach. I started a blog just after a year out of university just to start recording the journey, and also to try and help those new teachers who are going to be going through what I was going through. And then I joined Twitter. For me, Twitter was a whole new world. I could sit on my computer in the morning or late at night, and I could be having conversations with people in the United States, South America, Europe. It's always amazing to see who's awake in the middle of the night in their time. And then it really did help me find my voice. Just because I was, a first year, second year teacher, didn't matter. It didn't matter that I didn't have my own class. I still don't. Twitter gave me a voice on the global stage. It helped me to learn, connect and collaborate. And then one day, after a particularly interesting few months of my teaching career, I'm sitting on my computer, 8 o'clock at night, and this came through on my Twitter feed. I was looking for something I had a Year 6 class, or a Grade 6 class, for 4 weeks. I was looking for something to do with them while I was doing relief teaching, and I knew I wanted to do something global. Well, I ended up connecting with a lady named Deb Fraser, and we ran the first Global Classroom project. Back then we had 6 teachers from 5 countries, I think it was, and our students contributed to a wiki, a voice thread about life around the world. My students created these beautiful multimedia posters because quite a few of them, including myself, were too scared to put our voices on the voice thread. And then I thought that would be it. I was wrong. Deb decided, we're going to do this for 2011, 2012. Let's see if we can get people from, 6 continents. So I tweeted it. Bad idea. Within 2 weeks, we had 50 people signed up from kindergarten through to year 12. And to this day, I still remember sitting there staring at my Google document in utter horror. What have we done? So I know someone was on the Twitter feed was asking, for an example of the power of social media and crowdsourcing. Well, you're looking at it. The global classroom community, the way we work, the people we connect with and collaborate with, is done through social media and crowdsourcing. We literally created a Google form or a Google survey and said, how do you want to connect and collaborate? And we used the ideas from people around the world to create this. We just finished our 3rd project and celebrated technically 2 years of the Global Classroom Project. We are currently involved around 450 teachers from 35, 36 countries. Not all of them are active, but the core group of teachers that we have are incredibly motivated. So we have teachers coming into the community learning how to use ICT. We have teachers coming in learning how to run global projects. And some of those global projects have gone on to become something completely other, something so huge, like the Travelling Rhinos project, a project which was supposed to run for a year and will now run for 3 because of the incredible international interest. And then about 18 months ago, we created the Global Classroom Twitter chats. The Global Classroom chats were the first and remain the world's only global education chats on Twitter. We run every month, usually starting on the second Saturday of the month, and at 3 different time zones. So it could be morning. So we're trying to find a time when people are actually awake, because I refuse to get up at 3 a.m. for just about practically anything. And I certainly wouldn't do it for a Twitter chat. But the Global Classroom chats are an absolutely fantastic way for people on Twitter around the world to connect. We've had people connect through the Global Classroom chat and create global projects. We've had people become Twitter mentors, so teaching people how to use ICT or how to use Twitter. And in fact, this month's Global Classroom chats on July 13, 14 are actually looking at how do we introduce and support teachers' engagement with Twitter. So you're more than welcome to join us. You'll find our archives of the last 18 months on the wiki as well. And they're quite an incredible resource for people interested in just finding websites, ideas, projects. And now, thankfully, we're coming here. We've got a lot more iEARN teachers on Twitter, and we'd love to have your voice, start making your voices heard through the Global Classroom chats, because, even talking to people at the conference, the gentleman from Mali, who I was chatting to on the bus here, we all have stories to share, and these Global Classroom chats are a wonderful way of sharing those stories. And then, I suppose, in the last part of the journey, well, the journey's still continuing, but I met the wonderful team of iEARN Australia, joined the management team, and I'm working on building the iEARN Australia Twitter account. And one thing has sort of led to another, and I found myself on the road to Doha. Considering that I've been teaching for just over 3 years, I've been on Twitter for 2.5 years roughly, to find myself coming here to an international conference is quite a shock. So Twitter is a vehicle for empowering teachers. It enables teachers with an open mind to learn, share, connect and collaborate beyond their classroom walls. And ultimately become leaders. We don't set out to become leaders of change, but social media, in my case in particular, has certainly enabled me to become a voice of change in the global community. And for that, I'm truly grateful to the community, because you cannot do this without a global community, and the online community makes that little bit easier, because you're part of the community, you're not alone. And that, I think, is the most powerful message for new teachers or teachers who are doing global education. We are the only ones in our school. No one understands us. That's why we join Twitter, why we join Skype. We find the community. That's why we're in iEARN, because we're like-minded people. We're not alone anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And so now what we'll do is we'll open up for the Q&A. So we're going to throw this Twitter fall up on the screen any second now. And the questions will be from Twitter. So if you've been tweeting your questions in, we're going to take those now. If you still want to tweet your questions, iEARN M. Okay, so while we're waiting for that, I'll grab a question from the Twitter fall here. Michael and C at, I'm going to say this wrong, Cerniglia, said a question to all panelists. How do you respond to those who say that social media doesn't engage students, it distracts them?
I would love to start by answering this one because this was a recurring frustration of mine as I'm standing in front of class and I see students down on their phones or they're on their computers, but I can tell that they're typing when I'm not speaking. So obviously they're on Facebook or something like this. And I'm standing there at the front of the class in front of dozens of students who aren't looking at me, aren't maybe vaguely listening to me, but they're doing other things. They're answering email, they're checking the weather, they're browsing shoe shopping. And so I took a moment and tried to rethink and try to figure out what was going on and how I could change this. And so I've started incorporating social media into the classroom more and more. And I think the difference between distracting and engaging is who are you connecting with and why? And so in this classroom, it was very passive. The students were listening to me, and that was it. It didn't go beyond the walls of the classroom. It didn't go beyond the time they were in my classroom. It didn't seem to matter in terms of personal growth, that they could learn from the book. They could read it later. They could have my notes. It didn't seem to matter. And so I've done things like I started crowdsourcing my quizzes and midterms and tests where I have the students pull together questions from the material. So they have to write questions and then give short answers. And then they can post them on Twitter. They can post them on the classroom blog. It's interactive. They can answer each other's questions. They can respond to each other's comments. And they are responsible, almost completely responsible, for creating our quizzes, midterms, and exams. And I select the questions from their list and I grade them, but we do more and more crowdsourced in the classroom. And we do a lot of peer review and a lot of crowdsourced assessments. And so something like that, where it's just a slight shift away from a more passive interaction to a more interactive interaction. And that's, from my personal story, just even a slight shift in the interactive direction. Give the students an audience for their work that's more than just listening to the teacher or turning in an assignment, but make it matter somehow. Give them an audience and a purpose.
Maybe we can get the student perspective on that. You come in, you want to use your social media in the classroom, you have all these great ideas, you're sort of older teachers, just like, no way.
Well, yeah, I do see the problem with distractions which, I believe about distraction. I guess you have to give like specific tasks, but, your teacher, they know what to do, and they remember from students, and once the teacher
Nice. Okay, maybe we can move on to the next question, or?
Can you hear me? I'd like to answer the question regarding what's the next big thing about social media. Social media will be, I think, like the arena where all the brains will be communicating together to bring up something new. And as we know, the knowledge economy is all about ideas and all about sharing knowledge. So I think the use of social media will empower people to be more productive and be more of accountable, be more of looking for new information. Because what is it about knowledge economy? It's about compiling all our knowledge together, creating a new knowledge out of it. So this social media is actually a good platform or arena that would give us this space to be able to communicate simultaneously, which is really important in our communication. Even if you want to compare a discussion between people who are face-to-face and on a forum that people would visit upon their time, there will be a huge difference. So social media is interaction that goes with us on our mobiles. Maybe the next 5 years it will be on our watches or anything else that will be part of our even clothing, like talking like this. So this is how it's going to be evolving. So this is actually as simple as I could say, which leads us to another question. What are the education formal systems position in all this matrix? Maybe iEARN will be a good tool we can utilize, especially we have a global family, to make a difference, not to wait for the formal systems to change, but we can start the change. So all the formal systems will come and join us in this process.
I would also like to speak about social media as a research tool, because we've moved past that textbook publication as the only way to get access to research. And so, you have the idiom in English that history is written by the victors. Well, now we have Twitter, and we don't have to wait until the victors write a textbook to figure out what's going on. Twitter has a translation tool where you can follow people in any language, and on my phone I triple click and it instantly translates it for me using Google Translate. So you can follow Twitter, and that's how I get all my news. So I would encourage people to use social media, and especially research the use of Facebook and Twitter to get access to current events, breaking news on Arab Spring or revolutions or demonstrations. because it's a way to hear people's voices without it getting processed through publication houses and government publications and things like that. You get direct access to people.
There was a question.
Yeah, there's a few more questions actually. One of them that keeps getting retweeted is about not Anwar's looking for Tala. That's one of the success stories, which was one of Anwar's earlier tweets about success stories. So he's answered his own question. Thank you, Anwar. Dr. K. Sewickley, I think Andrew's friend, wanted to know, as technology evolves, where do you see social media heading in the next 5 years, and what's the next big thing? It was earlier.
That's a hard question to answer. What's the next big thing? Maybe Andrew will invent something.
I like actually to emphasize on this point. I myself used to use before 2008 a number of social media tools like Skype and Yahoo Messenger. And also I started a small account on LinkedIn. But after that, I thought, so many tools are there and you can find so many information, not in the traditional way. Okay, we usually go to the front page of any application we use, Yahoo, AOL, whatever, and we look at the news, and then we go to the section for purchasing or games, etc. But looking at G+ came out from Google, which is similar to Facebook, but it has different domains, putting people not into groups but into circles. So you'll have, based on your interest, a number of people, you put them in one circle, so you can immediately, just one click, you go and see their post. So the most people who were influential, you put them in one circle, and you see that they post for you new things that are emerging in technology, in education, in any other aspect you are interested in, which really expands your horizons of thinking. Because if you go yourself to go through the online books or articles, you will not have time to be selective like these people. So what happened actually, it gave me another perspective of how to look at social media, even if we want to do for education, because some of the big education institutes in the world, like MIT in Seattle, they also made a G+ page as a forum where people can go and upload things, discuss things. So it's an ongoing process. This leads us to talk about education. If we think about education, given the fact the acceleration in the systems of the information, how it's flowing right now, we need something that really can be timely and meaningful to the students. I will give you an example. Given the fact of the Arab Spring now in the region, I don't know what I'm going to teach my students in history. Okay, we know before the 1990, but what about now? What's happening around us? There is no case to show, or we can't even understand it ourselves. So this way, we still need to wait. The curriculum cannot change, cannot go to change what's written in there, because they have a fixed timing. If each curriculum has a 5-year lifetime or life cycle, and after 5 years, it will be changing. So the students who are just now experiencing the change in the world and in the region and in their own countries, what am I going to teach them? Social media actually is a good solution if we really want to use it very well. And it has the necessary tools to be protective from bullying, and also be able to exchange ideas and thoughts and build on the knowledge that's already there, but also create a new knowledge based on our interactions. Thank you.
One of the next big things in education are the MOOCs, massively open online courses, and things like Khan Academy that try to flip the way education has traditionally been done, where you had the lecture in the classroom and then homework at home. They're trying to videotape more lectures and make podcasts of lectures so that you can get access to specialist and expert lectures on so many subjects. iTunes has iTunes U, like iTunes University, where they have podcasts from different universities. There's Coursera and many other MOOC companies forming that are providing university courses online with video or audio lectures. So that's one of the next big things, is just trying to make anything, any subject or any study accessible to anyone over the web. And I think in terms of the next big thing and what should teachers be looking for, I think the most important thing to consider is audience. Who are you who do you want to connect with, and who do you want to be the audience for, and who do you want to be your audience? And so if you want to be active on Instagram and connect with that community, then connect with Instagram. If you want to be connected with the community on Twitter, then be connected with the community on Twitter. It's not going to be exactly the same for every person. It depends on what you want to do with it and who you want to be connected with, what community.
Okay, it looks like we have time, just a few more minutes for the last sort of question, and Michael is keen to respond.
I just wanted to respond to the person who was wanting to know if you can do just one thing in your classroom. And can I just say, start with the teacher. A connected teacher ultimately learns how to create a connected classroom. You start by building your network. Once you're comfortable learning with social media yourself, then you can start to explore the implications and using it inside your classroom. But it starts with you. The benefits of social media will impact on you personally. Each person on this panel, we come from 5 different countries. We met 3 days ago. Yeah, each of us share similar stories on the power of social media and impacting on us. So start with yourself as a teacher, and then once you're comfortable, you're more than welcome to start exploring social media within your classroom as well.
Okay, if we can give the final thought maybe to Andrew, if he wants it. All right, so we'll just end it there for now. You can continue this conversation online, obviously. I hope you all know how to do that. And if not, you can come up and speak to them in person. I know there's some interest about getting those presentations, so you can figure that one out. Maybe it'll be online. All right, thank you for joining us. I don't know what's next because I haven't downloaded the itinerary. And once again, thank you to all the panelists for joining us today. Goodbye.